Right, the cheat code on a crazy schedule to get to a crazy physique, okay? And also to have a happy life and have some sort of balance, because that is super important as well. So my name is Louis. I coach ambitious guys who want to build a physique of their dreams, but they are busy. This is probably because they're building a career, they're building up a business. They are very focused on their career and actually building a life they're proud of, but they also want their physique to reflect their mindset and how they run as a person. And there is a cheat code to being able to do this on a crazy schedule. You just need to know how, okay? And it's not always a case of needing more time. It's just a case of being able to split up your training week in a very clever and important way. So you include science, because that is important. So we know how the body's working. We know what we need to do to effectively maximize hypertrophy, maximize muscle growth, whilst also making sure that your career does not suffer. Okay, so there is 4 main key points that we need to remember when it comes to building a physique that you're proud of, whilst balancing a crazy fucking schedule. Okay, so first, if anybody can guess, it is training. Who would have thought it? Okay, so training is number 1, okay? Training. Okay. Number 2 is, no one thought again, nutrition. I don't care about using a different color pen. Nutrition, sick. Okay, and then these are 2 ones that people don't really take into consideration when they're moving towards kind of building that physique. Recovery, starts with R, who would have thought it? Recovery, please excuse that messy handwriting. And the final one that no one ever thinks about when it comes to it is data, and that's where we come into the science thing. Data. That's where we come into like the science side of things. Okay, so data, sick. Okay, so what we're first going to go through is training on how to actually focus on hypertrophy whilst also balancing that crazy schedule. So first things first, we need every muscle group to be getting enough volume. Okay, and obviously that's quite hard when you're only going to the gym 3-4 times a week and you only have, say, 45 minutes each gym session. But there are ways around it, okay? So first things first, we need to be making sure that we are doing, okay, 10 to 20 sets per muscle per week, okay? So 10 to 20 sets. Oh, my whiteboard's rolling away. Okay, sick. Okay, so 10 to 20 sets per muscle per week. Okay, sweet. That may be hard for some people. However, for ways that we can work around it, okay, it's if you can only go to the gym 3-4 times a week, we need to be making sure that the exercises that we are choosing are actually hitting multiple muscles at the same time. This is where compound lifts are gonna be your best friend, okay? This is where we need to be doing movements that don't just hit one muscle like in isolation. So when we're trying to target chest, shoulders, tries, this could be dumbbell press, this could be bench press, this could be Smith press. Making sure that we're hitting multiple muscles at the same time, okay? The way and how we're gonna do that is that's how we are gonna get to a point where we are doing your 10 to 20 sets per muscle, because that is what's needed for good hypertrophy. The way that I would probably split it up if you're going to 3 to 4 sessions per week is I would go for either, if it's 3 sessions, I would go for a upper, lower, full body. That's what I would go for, okay? And if you're doing a 4-day, I would go upper, lower, upper, lower. That would be my my thing, because realistically, if you are truly busy, you might not have the time to do 5 or 6 sessions a week. 3 or 4 is all you need, as long as we are making sure that we are getting the 10 to 20 sets per muscle per week. That is what's really important. Thirdly, we need to make sure intensity is high. You are not going to the gym and half-assing it. You need to give it everything, because realistically, we're only training 2 hours and 15 minutes a week. That's nothing compared to, say, the 160, whatever, how many hours there are in a week. We're only training 2 hours and 15 minutes. So we need to make sure that every exercise is intense, okay? We are going to either 1 rep in reserve or failure. We're not doing any of that sort of like leaving 2 or 3 left in the tank. You need to train hard, you need to get sweaty. That's how we're actually gonna be ensuring that we are moving towards hypertrophy, okay? That is the most important thing when it comes to the training side. So to recap, training, we need to make sure workouts are intense, we're training hard. We're making sure that each exercise is hitting multiple muscles. This is where compound movements are your friend, okay? There you go. Compound movements are your friend. Bench press, squat, deadlifts, shoulder press, like any pressing short movement, any sort of hinging movement, any sort of squat pattern, they are your best friend, okay? Making sure we're hitting 3 to 4 sessions per week, 45 minutes to an hour each session. I would say about, if you're really on a time crunch, 45 minutes at a minimum. Okay, so thirdly, nutrition. Nutrition is extremely important to nail, especially when you're dealing with this crazy schedule. Mainly because if we are eating loads of shit, firstly, we're not gonna grow any muscle, and secondly, we're not gonna lose any fat. Firstly, what you also need to work out with nutrition is, do you need to cut weight or do you need to bulk, okay? Cutting is where we need to lose fat, where bulking is where we need to actually build more muscle. Realistically, you need to pick one or the other. You can't just do both, because when you're in a deficit, it's incredibly hard to build muscle, and when you're in a surplus, it's incredibly hard to lose fat. So we need to pick one. What needs to happen first, cutting or bulking? And also, if you think you need to bulk, you also need to be aware of how much fat you have, because to do a successful bulk, you need to be leaner, okay? You need to be more insulin sensitive, and food needs to be more anabolic and actually cause more muscle growth. And the way that we're gonna do that is being more insulin sensitive, and that's only gonna happen from being leaner, okay? So nutrition, how do we make sure that we are kind of getting towards your goals? Okay, so first things first is tracking, okay? Realistically, with someone of a busy schedule, a meal plan probably won't be the answer. That is awful spelling, I do apologize. However, a meal plan's not always gonna be possible because you may not have time to meal prep. So that happens. So this is where tracking comes into play. This is where we use an app like MyFitnessPal, Chronometer. We make sure that we're tracking your food because it's simple thermodynamics. The energy in, energy out. If we're trying to lose weight or lose fat, we need to make sure that more energy is leaving than going in. And then if we're trying to gain weight, we need more energy coming in and less coming out, if that makes sense. Well, of course it makes sense, because I'm saying it, because I'm the best. Right, so we're gonna make sure we're tracking. Monster, quick. Also, what's really good to deal with a crazy schedule is also caffeine. Okay, so with nutrition, we're tracking. We also need to make sure that foods are high quality, okay? Not all foods are the same. Everything has a different quality of food. My brain is going, I can't quite think of right now the actual sort of name that I'm looking for, but we need to make sure that foods are high quality. This is making sure that they're nutrient dense, okay? We need to make sure that we're eating enough protein, firstly. That's super important in order to, even for when we're cutting or bulking, we need to make sure protein is high, because when we're bulking, we need the protein synthesis and actually build more muscle. Whereas when we're cutting, we also need the protein high to make sure that we can actually sustain the muscle that we have, okay? So protein is incredibly important, okay? This is incredibly hard writing this way because I am right-handed, but protein is very important. So tracking, high quality food and protein. Next thing that's super important is making sure you're eating enough carbs. You are gonna be someone, if you're really busy, who will be struggling with energy, okay? When you go to the gym and you haven't got much energy, it's very hard to make sure the workouts are intense. And the way that we're gonna make sure that you have enough energy is through carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are incredibly needed. Your brain runs off glycogen, your brain needs it, your body needs it. It's how effectively it's gonna fuel your muscles, and that is what's actually gonna give you enough energy to give it everything in the gym and actually be able to build more muscle, because you need energy. So carbohydrate, a really good expression, is carbohydrates is what actually builds the muscle, because it gives you the energy in the gym to put in the effort and actually build it, whereas the protein actually sustains the muscle and makes sure it's happening. Okay, so we need to make sure protein is good, carbohydrates are high, and finally fats. Okay, with fats, we need to make sure that your fats are nice, not low, but we need to make sure they're sitting around 60 or 70 grams. And for most people, that is very low, but 60 to 70 grams is a really good sort of, my brain is just 6, 7, sorry, I'm a child. So with fats, we need to be sitting around 60 to 70 grams, okay? Realistically, with that sort of like metric, it's making sure that your hormones are being regulated, and it's making sure that your test levels are going to stay at a good spot, and your body is also going to have a good enough energy source. So when you go to the gym, it's going to help with more energy, you're going to feel better, and once again, your workouts are going to be more intense, and you are going to be able to grow more muscle. But another thing as well, fats are very dense in calories. So a carbohydrate or protein is 4 calories per gram, whereas a fat is 9 calories per gram. So that's over double what a protein and a carbohydrate is, which means it's very calorie dense, which means that if you eat a lot of fat, it's very high in calories. So we need fats for your hormone levels and to regulate your body. However, we don't want it too high because fats aren't very filling. They are a little bit satiating, but in the grand scheme of things, the thing that's going to keep you most satiated means keeping you full, is going to be the quantity of food. And the way that we're going to build up quantity isn't going to be through fats, it's going to be through carbohydrates and protein. So we need to keep fats nice and low. So fats low, and also, like I said, carbs high. Okay, that is how we are going to balance your nutrition whilst balancing the crazy schedule and building up a crazy physique. So to recap, firstly, we need to be making sure that we are tracking your calories. We need to know how much energy is going in and how much energy is going out. Secondly, we need to make sure that your food is high quality. This is going to be leading to high protein meals, high carbohydrate meals to keep energy high, and we need to make sure fat is on the lower side, but nothing crazy. Don't cut all fats out, but making sure that it is not too high. Okay, so training done, nutrition done. Okay, third and finally, no, not third and finally, third off, so this is finally, recovery. Right, so with recovery, this is something that a lot of people with crazy schedules completely neglect. Like, you think the most important thing is just getting to the gym and training. But if you are not ensuring that you're recovering properly, you are not going to grow any muscle, because when you sleep and when you recover and when you rest, that is where your muscle is actually being built. So if you're go, just constantly working, constantly going to the gym and no rest in between and getting almost like fuck all sleep, you are not going to be building muscle. You are just wasting your time and you're just going to burn out, and then all of a sudden you are going to stop training and stop going to the gym. So what we need to make sure is we are recovering. So if that means that you may have time for 5 sessions a week, however, if your recovery is absolute shit, you're getting 4 hours of sleep a night and you are sacrificing sleep in order to train, that's stupid. You need to make sure that we are actually getting enough sleep and enough recovery. This is going to lower cortisol, and when your cortisol is lower, you are much more susceptible and receptive to actually growing more muscle. So we need low cortisol, okay? Need good sleep, because if we're not sleeping well, we're not recovering well. And if we're not recovering well, we ain't building muscle. So what you're doing in the gym is just a complete waste of time. Okay, so that's gonna be the most important thing when it comes to stuff like that. And that might mean like having a bedtime ritual where you read a book. I find that reading a book before I sleep is the best way to actually be able to feel better with, going to sleep quicker and just recovering better. So, nice and short one, that is recovery. To recap, we need to make sure that your cortisol is low, we need to make sure that we're actually getting enough sleep, and we are resting enough so your muscle actually grows. Okay, third and finally, data. I'm sure the finance bros here will know exactly what I'm talking about when I say data. They know all about data. So, I just dropped loads of pens. Right, so with the data side of things, okay? In order to make progress, you need to know what's happening. You need to know what you're eating, you need to know how you're training, and you need to know how you are recovering. This links all three of these things together, okay? Everything goes back to data. Without data, we have no fucking clue what's happening. So we need to make sure that we are smashing it in that regard. So that means that we are tracking your food, okay? That's how we're gonna ensure that we're having high protein, high carbohydrates. Literally everything I said comes back to data, okay? We need to make sure that we are actually tracking the workouts, because the one way to grow muscle through training is progressive overload. We need to make sure that we are getting stronger each week, okay? Progressive overload is king. There's two other ways to build muscle, but I'm not gonna bore you. The main thing that I want you to focus on is progressive overload. We can talk about other ways of hypertrophy in another video, but right now, progressive overload. And the way we're gonna make sure that progressive overload is happening is through, you're never gonna guess it, data. So we need to making sure that we are tracking your workouts, we need to be making sure we are tracking your food, and we need to be making sure that we are recovering, having good sleep, and therefore building more muscle. Yes, tracking is going to be a bit of a ball ache at first. However, tracking is the only way that we are going to be able, realistically, data is for cheat code, okay? Data is for cheat code to building a crazy physique and a happy life on a crazy schedule. It's just a little bit more hassle because of the fact that you have to track everything, but all of a sudden, you won't need to be training 5 or 6 times a week, because when you have data, you can drop it down to 3 or 4, make sure that you're nailing all the other habits, and then all of a sudden, you don't need more time. You just need to be smarter, train harder, eat better, recover better, and track your data, and then all of a sudden, you are on for an absolute winner. And that is the cheat code to building a crazy physique, a happy life on a crazy fucking schedule. So, if you like this video, I help guys, ambitious guys, build a physique that they're actually proud of. This is from entrepreneurs to finance bros to anybody who's trying to build a physique they are proud of. And we get good fucking results. So chuck me and follow on Instagram at It's Louis Guinness. And yeah, let's have a chat, see if I can help any further, and we'll go from there. But yeah, make sure to subscribe and hit the thumbs up button, share this with all your friends, and I hope this was helpful. But I'm happy, this is good, hope you're happy, have a good one guys.